It's October 16th, 1991. A blanket of fog muffles the rugged peaks of the Spanish mountains. You're with a group of friends, venturing into a town that time forgot, Mussara, a name whispered with trepidation even now, a place where the air hangs heavy with centuries of secrets, and where some say the past still has a hold. And our journey today takes us straight into the heart of this enigma. Enrique Martinez, an avid mushroom hunter, had his sights set on a local delicacy, the elusive bloody milkcaps. Joining him were his wife Anna and their friends, Jorge and Sofia. Lured by the promise of adventure and perhaps the thrill of tempting fate in a town whispered to be cursed.
So even in their pursuit of something as simple as mushrooms, the allure of the unknown played a role.
Mussara has its share of mysteries. This isn't just any ghost town. This settlement, clinging to the mountainside, is over 900 years older than most countries. It once housed a modest community of 300 souls, but around 40 years before Enrique and his friends arrived, Mussara was abandoned.
Abandoned.
The reasons: lost to time, shrouded in the same fog that seems to cling to its very stones. Imagine, as these friends drive deeper into the mountains, the sun already starting to dip below the peaks, the fog grows denser, almost as if the town itself is exhaling it. Remember, it's October, the air already crisp and cool. Yet as they step out of their vehicle at the town's edge, a wave of unexpected warmth washes over them.
Unexpected warmth? That's unusual. Almost like a welcoming embrace. But from what we've established so far, I'm not sure welcoming is the right word, is it?
No, welcoming wouldn't be how I describe Mussara. Crumbling buildings, barely more than skeletal outlines against the encroaching fog. Vegetation, wild and untamed, reclaiming what was once its domain. A silence so profound it felt almost heavy, pressing down on them.
It's like stepping into a Gothic novel. I can almost hear the wind whistling through the skeletal trees, the silence punctuated only by the sound of their own heartbeats.
And then there's the church. The moment their eyes fall upon it, a structure seemingly untouched by the decay around it, it's like the temperature drops again. A chill settling deep in their bones. And Jorge, you remember him, the friend drawn to the more macabre aspects of their little adventure.
Right.
He's immediately drawn, not to the church itself, but to something in front of it, almost hidden amongst the weeds and shadows. A single rectangular stone, jutting out of the earth like a broken tooth.
I have a feeling this isn't just any old stone, is it?
He calls it the Sis Stone. And with an eagerness that sends a shiver down even Anna's spine, he spins this tale of ancient Muslim armies marching through Mussara centuries ago, believing this unassuming stone held the key to victory in battle. Jorge, ever the daredevil, is the first to touch the stone, his hand lingering on its rough surface.
Okay.
He claims to feel a strange energy, a tingling sensation. Sophia, understandably skeptical, scoffs at his dramatics, but you can almost hear the curiosity creeping into her voice, as if she wants to feel it too.
And what about Anna? How does Enrique's wife react to all of this?
Anna, perhaps seeking to ground their little adventure in some semblance of normalcy, decides to humor them. She steps forward, a touch of apprehension in her eyes, and briefly touches the stone. Nothing.
Nothing.
No surge of energy, no ghostly apparitions, no whispers from the past. They all share a nervous laugh, relief, and maybe a touch of disappointment hanging in the air.
I can almost feel the tension ratcheting up like the calm before a storm. What happens next?
Enrique, he's a bit skeptical, but you can tell the whole atmosphere is getting to him. He decides to touch the Sis Stone too. He touches it, and it's like he's hit with this intense pull, this overwhelming urge to just stay there. He said he felt like he could have stayed there forever if his friends weren't there with him.
That's creepy, like the stone has some kind of hold on him.
He manages to tear himself away, but he's shaken. Something shifted in him. He can't shake it off. And if that wasn't enough, remember that church I mentioned?
One in the middle of town.
As he's trying to shake off this weird feeling from the Sis Stone, he looks up and he sees it, a dark figure in one of the church windows.
Wait, what? Did the others see it too?
Nope. Vanishes as quickly as it appeared. Enrique is left wondering if he even really saw anything.
Yeah.
But he can't shake this feeling that something's just not right.
Honestly, if I was there, I'd be out of there. Places like that, Mussara, with all that history, all those stories, it just gets to you, But I'm guessing they didn't exactly turn back, did they? So the creepy church window guy didn't scare them off. What did they do next?
Enrique, you see, throughout all of this, he's been unusually quiet, observant. And as they stand there in the shadow of that ancient church, he becomes aware of a subtle shift in the atmosphere. It began with a sound. Faint at first, barely audible over the whisper of the wind through the crumbling buildings. but steadily growing louder. A chorus of frogs. They're croaking, echoing from a pond, hidden somewhere in the fog at the edge of town. But it wasn't just the sound itself, it was the intensity.
The way you're describing it, it's almost as if those frogs were responding to something.
And here's where it gets really unsettling. As Enrique's companions laugh off the uneventful encounter with the cistone, he glances toward the source of the sound, toward the pond. But the fog, it's as if it's grown thicker, heavier, obscuring everything beyond a few feet.
And Enrique, still keeping that unsettling vision to himself.
He is. But the unease, it doesn't leave him. It intensifies with every step, every creak of a decaying floorboard, every rustle of leaves. They reach the pond, the source of the now almost deafening frog chorus. The sheer volume of it is disorienting, as though the air itself is vibrating. And remember that church, the one where Enrique saw the figure.
Right.
It looms before them now, a skeletal silhouette against the swirling fog. And against his better judgment, against the growing sense of dread in his gut, he feels drawn to it.
Drawn. This isn't just curiosity anymore. It's like something is beckoning him, pulling him towards whatever awaits inside.
Ana, Sofia, and Jorge, oblivious to Enrique's inner turmoil, wander into that overgrown graveyard behind the church. Their laughter, it's a jarring counterpoint to the oppressive atmosphere. Ana, she accidentally knocks over a headstone, breaks it. And it turns out this wasn't just any old headstone. It was unmarked. No name, no dates, just a single line carved across the middle, horizontal. It's like a dividing line, between the living and, well, you get the idea.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty unsettling, especially after everything else that had already happened. Did they ever figure out who was buried there?
That's where things get really interesting. See, La Mussara has this old legend, this tale about a curse.
What kind of curse?
So the story goes, back in 1873, during a time of civil war, this beloved general, General Ceros, he was secretly buried somewhere in La Mussara. His allies, they didn't want their enemies to know he was dead. They thought it would destroy morale, wartime stuff. So, under cover of night, they snuck his body into La Mussara and buried him in an unmarked grave.
Wow, a secret burial in a town that's already supposed to be cursed. What could possibly go wrong, right?
Right. Well, a few weeks later, soldiers from the opposing side, they show up in La Mussara. They had no idea the general was already dead and buried right under their noses.
Oh boy, talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So what did these soldiers do when they got to La Mussara?
They weren't exactly the most compassionate bunch, especially with tensions running high because of the war. They tore the town apart, looking for General Ceros, terrorizing the residents, demanding to know where he was hiding.
The poor townspeople, just caught in the middle of all this chaos. Did anyone try to tell the soldiers the general was dead?
One old man, he finally cracked under the pressure. Couldn't bear to see his town suffer anymore, so he told the soldiers that the general was dead, buried in the cemetery. But of course, because of the whole secrecy thing, he didn't know where exactly the grave was. It was chaos. And as if things weren't already tense enough, all of a sudden the frogs in this nearby pond, they start croaking, like really loudly.
Frogs, that's a little specific, kind of ominous, isn't it?
Right, this cacophony of croaking just filled the air, almost like a bad omen. And the soldiers, they're already on edge. They start to get really unnerved. They finally come across this one grave. It hadn't been disturbed. It was the grave of a woman who had recently died. And rumor had it, she was a witch.
So what did the soldiers do when they found the witch's grave?
The townspeople, they begged them not to disturb it. They knew the stories, whispers of curses, dark magic. But the soldiers, they were convinced they were being tricked. So they ignored the pleas, forced the townspeople to dig up the grave.
What happened when they opened the coffin?
Well, they say when they pried that coffin open, the woman inside, she looked perfectly preserved, like lifelike almost, and her eyes wide open, staring right at the soldiers.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd be running for the hills at that point. That's terrifying.
It gets even creepier. At that exact moment, all the croaking from the frogs, it just stopped. Silence. And then, as quickly as they had arrived, the soldiers decided to leave La Mussara. Just like that.
Wow, maybe they just realized they were messing with forces they didn't understand. So what about the general? Did they ever actually find his grave?
Here's the thing. They already had. Remember how they buried him in secret? It turns out they would already dug up that grave for the woman before the general died. When it came time to bury him, they just put his coffin at the bottom of that open grave and covered it with a layer of dirt. Then, when the woman died the next day,
they buried her on top of him.
Exactly. No one knew about the general being buried there except for those sworn to secrecy. So when they went to bury the woman, they lowered her coffin into that same grave, completely unaware that the general was resting below.
Wow, that's incredible. So those soldiers, they were digging right past the general's coffin the whole time and never even knew it.
They had no idea. And the reason they never put her name on the headstone, well, let's just say people were a little superstitious back then, didn't want to tempt fate by giving a supposed witch a proper marker, you know? That's why there was just that single horizontal line on the stone. This eerie, silent reminder of the town's dark past.
Hold on, are you saying that the headstone Anna broke? That was the witch's grave, the one they buried on top of the general.
You got it. And then it gets even weirder. Enrique, gaze fixed on that window where he glimpsed something moments ago.
And the fog, it doesn't clear again. Offer him another glimpse of whatever or whoever might be watching from the shadows.
No. The fog remains, a swirling, impenetrable barrier. But it's almost worse. It fuels his imagination, allows his fear to take root, and then it happens. He takes a step closer to the church, then another, and another, until he's standing right in front of that window, peering into the dark, silent interior.
He's stepping right into the heart of his fear. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about this. What are his friends doing all this time?
They're still in the graveyard, lost in their own world of morbid fascination, their backs to Enrique.
Oh.
And then, as Anna turns to show Sophia a particularly elaborate headstone, she notices he's gone. Panic flares. They call out his name, but their voices are swallowed by the fog and the incessant croaking of the frogs.
Gone. He just vanished.
Not quite. Anna spots him. Or rather, she spots his silhouette, a shadow within the shadows, halfway through the church window, as if he's crawling inside.
Crawling? You make it sound almost involuntary, like he wasn't pulled through that window, but compelled, driven by a force he couldn't control.
That's exactly the impression Anna gets. She calls out to Enrique again, her voice sharp with urgency, fear lacing her words. And this time, he seems to hear. He pauses, his head turning slowly, as if struggling against some unseen force.
So there's a flicker of awareness, a glimmer of the man she knows trapped inside whatever hold Mussara, or something in Mussara, has on him.
Yes, but it's fleeting. He turns back to the window and then he's gone. Swallowed by the darkness of the church, Anna rushes towards the window, her heart pounding, Jorge and Sophia right behind her. They call out Enrique's name again and again, but there's no answer. Only the echo of their own fear in the oppressive silence. Anna, frantic now, searches everywhere, her hands shaking, her mind racing. Jorge, shaken to his core, joins the search, his earlier bravado forgotten. But Sophia, she hangs back, her gaze fixed on the church window, a look of dawning horror twisting her features.
What is it, they say? Sometimes it's the things we don't see, the things that remain hidden that are the most terrifying. What was it Sophia saw or thought she saw in that moment? And what of Enrique? Was this the last anyone saw of him?
Near the edge of town, they find it. His wicker basket, discarded on the ground, still filled with the mushrooms he'd collected.
His basket? But no Enrique, that's getting stranger by the minute.
Right, as if he simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only his belongings, and a growing sense of dread.
So what did they do?
Well, Jorge, always the pragmatist, convinced Anna and Sophia to leave Mussara and contact the authorities.
Yeah, that was probably a good call. What did the authorities make of it all?
Despite extensive searches, no trace of Enrique was ever found. The official conclusion. He got lost in the woods, a tragic hiking accident.
Just like that. But you're not convinced.
Let's just say Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister had occurred in Mussara. The circumstances were just too strange to be dismissed as a simple accident.
The sudden vanishing act, the eerie silence, the appearance of the mushroom, and of course that shadowy figure in the church window. It all points to something more.
Exactly. And Anna, driven by grief and a need for answers, she refused to let it go. Mussara wasn't done with them yet. On one particular trip, as they approached the old church once more, the fog parted, almost theatrically.
Yeah.
And they saw something that sent chills down their spines.
Okay, you've got to tell me, what did they see?
Inside the church, where pews once stood, 6 dark, robed figures stood in a circle, as if engaged in some sort of ritual.
6 figures, robed, inside the church. This is like something straight out of a horror movie.
6 figures, shrouded in darkness inside that old church. It was a sight that could make anyone, even the biggest skeptic, question what they were seeing. Anna, Jorge, and Sophia, they were frozen in place, caught between curiosity and this primal fear.
You can practically feel the chills down your spine. What did they do?
Anna, maybe hoping for a rational explanation, maybe even some clue to Enrique's disappearance, she starts walking towards the church.
That's incredibly brave of her, considering. What happened as she got closer?
As she drew nearer, one of the figures turned. Slowly, deliberately, it faced her. And that's when the true horror of the situation sunk in.
What was it? What did the figure look like?
There was no face, where you'd expect to see eyes, a nose, a mouth. There was nothing, just smooth, featureless skin.
A faceless figure. That's terrifying. It's like something out of a nightmare.
It was a sight that defied explanation. It cut to the core of their primal fears. Anna froze, completely paralyzed.
I can't imagine what that must have been like for them, to come face to face with something so utterly alien.
The faceless figure just remained motionless, its presence alone sending waves of terror through them. It was at that moment, facing that chilling void, that they truly grasped. This wasn't just a missing person case. This was something far stranger, far more unsettling.
It makes you wonder, what else might be lurking in the shadows of that town? What happened next?
Whether they returned or not, and what they might have encountered if they did, remains a mystery. The story of La Mussara, of Enrique's disappearance and those faceless figures, is passed down, whispered in hushed tones. It serves as a chilling reminder that some places hold secrets best left undisturbed.
It's a haunting story, and it leaves us with more questions than answers. Did the Psy Stone really open a portal? Was Enrique taken by some supernatural force? And what about those faceless figures? What do you think?
Perhaps we'll never know for sure. But it makes you think, doesn't it? About the nature of reality, the mysteries that linger just beyond our perception, and the places where the veil between worlds seems to thin. And as you sit there in the comfort of your own home, consider this. What would you do if you found yourself face to face with the unknown